Hello again, everybody, and welcome into the Take the North podcast, along with Dan Wiederer of The Athletic. I am Mark Grote of Chicago Sports Radio 670 The Score. Dan and I were both at Soldier Field to watch the Bears season finale, the regular season finale, which was a 1916 loss to the Detroit Lions. Jake Bates with a game-winning 42-yard field goal at the buzzers. The clock read 0. We could see it. Game over. The Bears lose their finale despite going to the playoffs because Washington beat Philadelphia. And we were all kind of gathering around and watching the end of that game right after the Bears game ended as we were making our way to the Bears locker room. Because Philadelphia lost, the Bears clinched the 2 seed still. And the Chicago Bears, ladies and gentlemen, will host the Green Bay Packers in the postseason on Saturday night at Soldier Field, 7 p.m. Dan, can we handle this?
So there's 2 questions here. There really are. I think this football team can handle it. I think the coaches and players inside the building are capable of handling this. I don't know that our city is ready for this. I really do think that there is going to be a civic anxiety over the next 6 days that is going to have to be managed, right? Like, it is going to be a real thing in the city of Chicago, because this is, as I put in my column for The Athletic, it's a heavyweight fight with history here, because you know what the Packers have been in tormenting you for the last quarter century or longer. If you really want to put it straight, I looked it up. 24 years the NFC North has been in existence. The Packers have finished ahead of the Bears 18 times. We know that they ended their Super Bowl hopes in 2010 in the playoffs. We know that they knocked them out of the playoffs in the season finale here in 2013. There's a lot of history that swirls here, Grote. And again, that doesn't really pertain to all those players and coaches in the building, but it is still a real thing. And I think you and I would both sit here tonight and agree that the worst possible thing that could happen to this city is for the Bears to lose a playoff game next week to their rivals.
Yeah, I mean, it's high roller, high risk, high reward stuff. If I've ever seen it, everybody knows you're right, because if the Bears were to lose to the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, that would be the overwhelming story of the season, even though we know a ton of good came out of it, mostly what we're seeing from the Chicago Bears offense. But you're right. I know exactly how we look back on Bears seasons. You and I, we fancy ourselves as Bears historians. We've seen a lot. We know what punctuates a season. We know what seasons are known for, so you're right. High risk, high reward. But quite frankly, Dan, I cannot wait.
It should be fun. It's a Saturday night game. We had a Saturday night, instant classic a few weeks ago here. I will say this, though, Grote, the level of confidence I had in this Bears team to handle that game was higher 6 hours ago than it is right now, because of the way they played today, and with this losing streak reaching 2, and because of some of the things that put them in this giant hole today that they had to dig out of, and they successfully dug out of it, which we've learned that this team can dig out of anything, and they can get out of any hole that they're in, but sometimes you can't get fully out of it. And so there's some worrisome things from within this football game today, most notably a defense that gave up 433 yards and an offense that didn't score a single point until we were into the fourth quarter.
The week after allowing 496 yards to San Francisco. I get it, different team, different beast at the moment. But again, Detroit, we knew. Like, the one thing I said today when I was previewing the game on Instagram and for the score, I said, look, they still have star players. If star players come up and bite you and make plays, that's what happened in a lot of cases. It was like Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown were playing catch a lot of the day. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 11 catches for 139 yards. Goff, 27 of 42, 331, touchdown and an interception. So the stars came out to play. And to me, Dan, this is just your warning. It's your warning for the Chicago Bears that you're not going to get away with the heroics all the time at the last second. Sometimes the big yards that you gave up throughout the game are not going to be fixed by turnovers, and we're not going to make that the focus of the game. But all of a sudden, the defense has been becoming the focus. So I think that's your warning now. that is your warning into the postseason and even in the off season into next year, that you're finding out you can't always get away with it.
Yeah, Grote, I don't know if you're like me, where you were sitting here in the fourth quarter after the Bears had rallied from down 16-0 to tie the score at 16, and having that thought in the back of your head in that it might be the worst thing for this team if they find a way to win this game, because it gives them this false sense of security that they can just rescue themselves in the late stages of games without playing the type of precise football that's needed to survive in the playoffs. And so I think in some ways this final result today was very much deserved. It reflected the performance that they had out here today at Soldier Field, and it gives them an indicator and a wake-up call of, look, we can't live that way all the time. Good football teams are going to make us pay for taking an entire half to get our offense rolling, for not being able to find answers defensively until we're inside the red zone. And there's just a lot of different things that you have to be really, really on to be able to survive and advance in the playoffs. And the Bears got a taste of that this week without the do or die stakes that are going to be there next weekend when we walk back into this building. And so maybe in some ways the final result here gives this team that little sobering wake-up call that gives them a little more purpose this week of understanding what the tightrope they're on looks like.
Yeah, just in case that word charmed had actually crept into their brains. Like sometimes teams are just charmed and you get lucky and you sort of ride that wave. You can say, yeah, there have been times where you have been charmed this year, but it's getting to that time of year, obviously degree of difficulty going up. And that's what it'll continue to do into the playoffs, especially against the Green Bay Packers for the third time. I do have one piece of sound that I want to play for you, and it was Jaquan Brisker around his locker after the game. I actually talked to Jalen Johnson before, and he said that Detroit was using their bread and butter to perfection on the Bears, as in using the middle of the field a ton. Just absolutely owning it. And that's what Jalen Johnson said. And so I brought that same idea up to Jaquan Brisker. I said, hey, and my question might be in there, but in case it isn't, I asked Jaquan, like Jalen said, like everything was going to the middle. What exactly was going on? What insight can you add? And this is how Jaquan Brisker responded. It's very interesting.
So that they kind of used their strength against you, getting a lot of stuff in the middle of the field, their offense against your defense. Why were they able to get away with that so easily?
I mean, we're playing a whole bunch of man today. No help in the middle. A lot of, picks, rubs. Really they schemed us up, and, we just had to do a better job covering. Yeah, they just got us in the right call. They just out-schemed us, really. Just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, we know how honest Jaquan Brisker can be. They were not making the plays either. And I guess, the way Brisker is calling it, he didn't exactly like some of the play calls that were coming down or some of what the Bears were doing schematically.
You get Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams in space, and it's really hard to keep up with them. They have suddenness to them, right? That makes it very difficult to defend, and we saw that all afternoon today. The other part of this conversation is how precise Jared Goff was at times in this football game. Again, it's fun to watch that from the bird's eye view that we have, where you see a window open and a quarterback be very decisive and very precise with taking advantage of the windows there. Jared Goff was great in that regard today. It's almost teach tape that Ben Johnson can show Caleb Williams in the offseason to say, look, like this is what is required to reach the next level of NFL quarterbacking. It's not just all about turning it on in the fourth quarter and bringing us back from big deficits. If you want to go places where you want to go in your career, consistency is what's required and precision is what's required. And Jared Goff was doing it today. And you could find elements of this football game where he was in his groove and he was making the Bears defense pay and exploiting their coverages and hitting some big plays that gave them a chance to win the game. And lo and behold, they won the game.
And the Bears are also finding out the cold reality of, even if you do force big turnovers, which the Bears did again in this game with Kevin Byard being the recipient of a tipped ball. It was TJ Edwards, right?
I think Brisker, it looked like TJ initially, and I think Jaquan Brisker was ultimately the guy that got his hand on the football there.
Yeah, I was hearing people say that in the locker room. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought that was 53 who made the play right there, but they're finding out. And even like there was a sequence in the first half when it was 3-0 Lions. Detroit runs a trick play, and they were the only team running trick plays today, by the way.
Yeah, a couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of them, which is very interesting. Dan Campbell probably anticipating or thinking that Ben Johnson would return fire or start in that way, but he never did. But Detroit did. One of their trick plays actually was blown up by Austin Booker. So it's great, rousing, good defensive play. The Bears needed it. And then on 2nd and 10, immediately a 13-yard play. Eventually, it's another third down conversion to St. Brown, a field goal. But that's the kind of day it was. They're making plays, but they're not finishing well enough. So just so many problems with the Bears defense on this day. Example after example. The Andrew Billings penalty on 4th and 1.
Two of them, yeah.
Right. Like, and Big Bill made a big play too, but there's some sloppy stuff going on in the Bears defense right now that you really hope that Dennis Allen can find some way to maybe even step out of their comfort zone to make some of this better going into the postseason.
That stuff has consequences, and it has consequences that will end your season here very soon. And so the Bears got to get that side of the ball shored up. They've got to get their offense humming a little bit. I think you could feel in the post-game press conference the agitation from the head coach, who really singled out his offense as the one phase that he felt worse about. Obviously, he oversees that side of the ball more than he oversees the defense. And so to see them get off to the slow start, to hear in his own words, in Ben Johnson's own words, that this was one of the simpler game plans that they had in for the year. He said he didn't think it was all that elaborate. And so he's going to have to go back on the film and figure out why it was taking so long to find any sort of rhythm. Seemed very, very frustrated by the performance of this offense. 69 yards before halftime, Grote, 4 first downs, and obviously very few explanations for why it was that way until they got into the fourth quarter and suddenly turned it on.
Yeah, see, that's another thing that they didn't get away with that. The Caleb Williams and the offense, so many times they have, and they almost did it again. I mean, there were a couple of big-time plays by Caleb in the third quarter. The 25-yarder to Jade Walker, 19 yards to Cole Kmet, both of them complemented by two-point conversions. They were doing it like they had to, which they did. So I thought that was some of the good stuff. But right from the very beginning, again, the first drive, they punt. Your colleague, Kevin Fishbane, said that was the Bears' 9th punt on an opening drive this season and 6th in the past 8 weeks. They haven't scored a touchdown on the opening drive since week 9 against Cincinnati. And that's Kevin Fishbane, your colleague at the Athletic, coming up with that. But there's just too much of that. They did not get away with the slow start this time around, despite some impressive drives and throws by Caleb later in the game.
Yeah, and Caleb had an interception today as well. There is this stretch here, and you referenced some of it there, where you get into the fourth quarter, you're down 16-0, it feels like the game is lost, and then all of a sudden, all these 2025 Bears things just start happening in sequence, right? You get Caleb Williams throwing a 25-yard TD pass to Jade Walker, and not only is it a 25-yard TD pass, it's the pass that breaks Eric Kramer's single-season passing record for the Bears. And you're like, okay, there's some magic in the air. They show it on the video boards, that, commemorating that milestone, and the crowd gets enlivened for a little bit. Lions get the ball back up 16-8, and on a 3rd and 1 play, they try to run a halfback pass from David Montgomery to Jared Goff, but Jaquan Brisker covers Jared Goff, and ultimately Andrew Billings sacks David Montgomery. That's something I didn't have on my bingo card today, an Andrew Billings sack on David Montgomery. So then you get the ball back. Another touchdown drive. A lot of Colston Loveland on that drive. A lot of Colston Loveland all day. The Bears rally. They get the 2-point conversion to Cole. It's 16-16. The Byard interception gives you the football with more than 2 minutes left. You're deep in your own territory, but you have the ball in a tie game, and the whole building thinks you're going to go win. I know you asked Grady Jarrett, hey, did you think you were going to win there? And he said, hey, we thought we were going to win when it was 16-0, right?
Yeah.
So that's the belief this team has built up, but yet that series is a failure pretty quickly. There's an intentional grounding penalty on Caleb. It results in a punt, and I thought one of the more notable things that we learned in the post game is that on 4th and 5, at the 2-minute warning, at their own 31, Ben Johnson was very seriously considering going for it.
Oh, man, he was.
And he acknowledges that in a direct question from our guy, David Haugh, that, yeah, I was very seriously considering going for it. They opted to punt, believing that they still had 3 timeouts left and a chance to get a stop defensively and get the ball back. And there's a video circulating around social media right now of Ben saying, should have gone for it. after they failed and didn't get the stop. And so here we are, right? And you give up the game-winning drive, you don't get the ball back, and that's all she wrote, which left a feeling, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, but that was not the vibe of a locker room of a team that finished with 11 wins, a division championship, and a 2 seed for the playoffs. There was an edge in there that was very unfamiliar.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty depressing. They were moving things rapidly. You know what I mean? They're like, guys, get in here. Bears didn't do anything wrong. It's like, but it was fast. I mean, they were on their way out the door. That was an angry bunch. And I could also look, they're gonna throughout the week, of course, they're gonna talk more about the Green Bay game, but they didn't want any part of that at this point in terms of just like whoever the opponent is the opponent and the playoffs are the playoffs. But you're right. It was a very dark locker room for the Chicago Bears on this day. I will say one thing, man, that's really getting good is a guy by the name of Colson Loveland. And another 10 catches for 91 yards. And he had a touchdown as well, along of 27 in this game. I don't have the refreshed stats, but he might be leading the Bears now.
I'll get them for you right now. If you just keep talking, I'll dig them for you.
Oh, no, this is what I do, buddy boy. Don't you even worry because, so Colston Love and 10 catches for 91 yards. Luther Burden would be the competition and DJ Moore, but DJ Moore had just the 1 catch for 11 yards. So I'm going to guess that it is Colston Loveland.
You have guessed correctly. Colston Loveland, team best 58 catches, team best 713 receiving yards, team best tied with DJ Moore and Romadunze with 6 touchdown catches. And so that is a top 10 pick who has found his way up the staircase during the season. And it's not just the production, Grote, it's the moments that production comes in. You can tell now that he is Caleb Williams' go-to guy on 3rd down, on 4th down, in the red zone, in big moments. The ball is going towards Colston. That's a big deal. Again, we've talked recently about the chance for not only Caleb and Colston to play together, but to do so under Ben Johnson's guidance. This group should be together for a while. And to see that ascension, it's pretty impressive. And Colston deserves a lot of credit for the season he's put together here and coming on really at the right time.
Yeah, and Luther Burden continues to be super impressive too. 3 catches for 35 yards on the day. Again, didn't have the big volume, didn't have the quantity, but it feels like every play that he makes is like at a crucial point in the game, a 3rd down, and his ability to catch the ball and I've said it before, it is the ferocity with which he runs is something to see. So those 2 rookies, man, they are really heading in the right direction and do something every week now that impresses me.
Yeah. And so look, like you've got to continue to tap into that. You've got to find your playmakers. You've got to make plays. This is the month now where playmakers make the difference in how a season is remembered. And the Bears will go into a huge rivalry clash with the Green Bay Packers next Saturday, which that's also a little sort of wrinkle on this whole thing. It changes the rhythm of the week. The Bears have to ready now for a shorter week. They've got to adjust they've played Saturday games in short weeks before, but it does change how you're structuring yourself and how you're structuring your practices. And so they're going to look for a formula. I will say this, Green Bay has not won a football game since they beat the Bears at Lambeau Field more than a month ago. They're going to walk in here next week, 4 weeks removed from the last time that Jordan Love, their starting quarterback, played a full game. There should be an opportunity and a vulnerability to go after here. At the same time, you and I have talked about this. The Bears played 2 games against the Packers, and for 125-plus minutes, they never held the lead until they scored a game-winning touchdown in overtime in that game here a couple weeks ago. And so you just better be ready to understand what you're walking into. I think the Bears have the leadership and the focus within this team to be ready. The coaching staff is going to set that tone pretty quickly. But, man, there's a lot here this week for a young, inexperienced team to really find its path to being successful in the playoffs.
Dan, do you have any 3-word reviews that you would like to share with the mighty Take the North audience?
Do I ever? And you won't believe who's at the top of the list here. It's an old friend.
If it's not Mark Potash, I'm leaving the podcast. If it's not Potsy, I'm out of here.
Mark Potash started us off with bad, better, worse. which I thought was a perfect synopsis of this game. This team was bad at the start. They got better, and then the ending was the worst. So that one was a good addition by Mark Potash. We've got this one from Bears Girl, Barely Alive Bears, which is kind of a feeling coming out of here where you just feel like a team that is, not as spry and feisty as they felt like they were so recently, and just feeling like, oh boy, they've got to find their way to get back on track here. We've got a disappointing all around from Gideon Horberg. I think you would agree with that one. Home playoff game. Yeah. Alejandro Miranda giving us a really good perspective tweet there, right? There is a home playoff game here. It's hard to remember when you get beat the way the Bears got beat today. Yes. But that's there. Coach Lima offers up Jekyll and Hyde. It felt like a Jekyll and Hyde team today. Bear down Hawkeye. Sure. Crossing routes everywhere. We referenced what the Lions were doing over the middle of the field to take advantage of a vulnerable Bears defense. Average Joe with an outlier here, Grote. He says Ben Johnson overrated. I think he might be on an island with that one, with what this season has been. That's the raw emotion. I'll give you a couple more here. We've got Dilemma offers confounding slow start. It's confounding and it's a trend. These slow starts have not been an anomaly for the Bears, and you really need to figure out a way to get there. And then Kyle Monungai Enjoyer offers us 1 quarter frauds, which is an interesting way to look at this team, because obviously they came back to life in the fourth quarter, but for 3 quarters they were not a good enough football team to win an important game here at Soldier Field. Very odd, though, again, as you mentioned a little bit ago, for this team to sort of still earn the 2 seed and not lose anything tangible with this loss today. They get the 2 seed because the Commanders in a Josh Johnson versus Tanner McKee game out in Philadelphia get that win that sort of gives them this gift of keeping the 2 seed. Yeah. And yet you just felt in that locker room that, like, man, this team has got an urgent resetting process to do. And I thought Grady Jarrett said it the best in saying, hey, look, you got to rip the Band-Aid off. You got to speak truth. And then you got to go about correcting yourself in a way that puts you in a position to be successful in this next game, which, as you mentioned, Saturday, 7 p.m. an Amazon Prime game for the Bears.
Yeah. And look, hey, the Bears have lost 2 in a row. They've lost 2 in a row. So it's not a good feeling. I like that it's not a good feeling, because that tells me that they feel like they should play a lot better, and they're not just happy to be here, and that they have a certain expectation about themselves. But I can put a very nice point on it here at the end, Dan. The Chicago Bears were 11-6 this year. It's unbelievable. Through it all, it's like I guess it's hitting me right now that I didn't predict this. I mean, we'll do a podcast at the end of this year giving all the predictions that we gave early in the season, things that we said, and then we will throw them back in our faces because there's a lot of this, most of this I did not expect, but it's pretty nice to be looking down at my phone and see Chicago Bears 11-6 with the season over. As you said, Dan, heading into a playoff game Saturday night at Soldier Field, 7 p.m., which we will get to talk about right here on Take the North. You'll be writing about it in The Athletic. Lord knows we'll be talking about it on The Score. So it's absolutely on. And I think you've got the right couple of people right here to keep you informed about what will be going on here in the next couple of weeks.
I agree.
Chicago Bears, over the air.
And we've got great theater. You know, we couldn't ask for a more theatrical matchup for the playoff opener against the Packers here at Soldier Field. I've said it all along that this Bears team has been fearless. They've been a team that has responded well. This is a big test. It's the final exam now to go respond and see what their fearlessness looks like in the playoffs. We'll see if they're ready for that. One little footnote here. I'm looking down at my phone, and I've got a text here from good friend Luke Canellis at Fox 32. Yeah. For those of you looking at where to catch next week's Saturday playoff game against the Packers, he says that Fox 32 Chicago will carry the Amazon broadcast and will have Bears Game Day Live before the Rams and Panthers game and a Fox post-game show with press conferences all immediately after the game. So if you're looking to dial into really good Bears coverage, Fox 32 is your place to be on TV next week, even though it is officially an Amazon Prime broadcast. So that's a good little note for our Chicago audience.
Absolutely fantastic. It is so absolutely unbelievably 100% on Bears Packers in the postseason. For Dan Wiederer of The Athletic and frequent score contributor, for our executive producer, Adam Studzinski, I am Mark Grote saying thank you so much for watching and listening to the Take the North podcast.
Great talk. See you out there.